So welcome to Talk On to Walk On. This week we want to talk about travelling, and in particular midlife travelling, because one thing that is constantly aimed at Patrick and I is that you're always away and you're never at home. And sometimes it's said in a nice way, and sometimes it's said with a bit of an eye roll. But it got us talking about our love of travel and where that came from. Putting finances to one side, and I think that's important because what we looked at each other and said was, yes, we're lucky enough to be able to do these things, but it's something we have always done. And me in particular, I've done it on a shoestring and various budgets over the years, and often the best stories come from when you have less but still be brave enough to take those adventures. So it was just something that we thought would make a good podcast topic, especially given the fact that many midlifers are taking the brave step, taking solo adventures and travelling more and seeing the world more, probably because of social media, which is something we can talk about, which is the good side of social media. But let's open with our reasons of why we love travel.
I guess for me, having grown up in Kenya, grown up overseas, and having been to boarding school and being put on a plane, the actual act of travelling and moving places I've had since I was a small child. The other thing is, again, from being a child, as a child, I used to spend ages poring over maps of the world. I don't know why, but maps of the world are almost my earliest memories, and I've always wanted to go places. Yeah. So although initially I didn't actually travel much as a child, other than within Kenya, and I went back to England a couple of times until my teenage years, but I've always wanted to travel.
Because of the books? Because
of the books, and that I just had an innate curiosity. I used to read National Geographic magazines.
Of course you did.
Well, sorry, I'll change that. I used to look at the pictures in National Geographic magazines. I didn't used to read them, actually. And it just fascinated me. So I've always wanted to explore travel to different parts of the world.
That's the point. It comes, and this is where we are similar. Not that I read National Geographic, but actually it's what you're exposed to. We have an innate love of it. It's not because we're now financially able to travel more and have the space to do it. It's just that we have an innate love of it. And I think that was one of the points that we wanted to make. Mine came from just listening to stories. As you know, my family, my uncles were in the Merchant Navy. My cousins grew up in California. My mum lived in San Francisco in the 60s. These were the stories that were around the Christmas dinner table, at the parties, or just topics of conversation endlessly was about where my family had been and what a great time that they'd had. So I think, again, we talk about in our coaching sometimes inherited blueprint, and you become what you see. But I think that's where certainly mine came from, listening to the stories and me thinking, oh, I want to do that. Even my dad, he went to Malaya.
Oh yes, with the
TA, and he never stopped going on about it. My aunties and they all went. They had all these lovely experiences in these different cities, especially when they were older. And I'm in that place now, and I just feel like, yes, I've always travelled, but it's something I still want to do because the world is so vast. We're never going to see all of it, but we're going to give it a bit of a go.
That's right. And I think just finishing off on the childhood bit, as children, when you're listening, as you did, listening to stories of people living in other parts of the world, or in my case when I was looking at pictures of different parts of the world, because they're exciting, they're positive stories. Neither of us were hearing stories about don't go there, or they were all exciting stories. And that sort of is like a spark in a child, isn't it? It's a spark
of curiosity.
Then there's that lovely word wanderlust. It starts developing this lust to travel and to wander and to see different things. And I think we both had it from different sources and in different ways.
But also you read often about the benefits of travelling. I mean, some people fear doing something other than going on a package holiday where everything's done for you, and it can be a bit of a mindset shift to do something else. But the benefits of doing it, I think, are huge.
Yeah.
Because you've got to be willing to experience the unknown, be willing for things to go wrong, Sometimes that's where the best stories come from. Be willing to be flexible, be willing to be spontaneous. That's the one thing that I love when we travel, is we don't over plan. Oh, just to get to the rough idea requires planning. But within that rough idea, we tend to leave enough flexibility to be spontaneous, because once you get to a new country and you start talking to the locals, which is another topic of conversation that we're going to mention, the importance of engaging with the people who live in the places that you visit. You don't know where that can lead, and to leave space for that, I think, is key.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the experience.
And you're right that we try not to overplan.
Just talking about midlifers, what's interesting is we were the generation that did travel pre-internet. You know, you went into the travel agent and you asked them to plan your travel for you, or you just, if you wanted to do some backpacking, you literally had a book. I think it was called The Lonely Planet or The Rough Guide.
Like or Africa on a shoestring or South America on a shoestring.
Yeah.
It was all,
And I think probably that's why there's a boom. Perhaps now people can see things on social media. I think our generation, perhaps, I would like to think, are a bit more robust if they've done travelling as a younger person. And I now think it's so much easier to do than, that's why I think there's no excuse now, because it's easier to plan with whatever budget that you've got. You can do the shoestring, but it literally all is, the research is there at the press of a button. And now with AI, there are benefits now of speeding up the research in terms of, you can literally just put in, I'd like to do this on a particular day, what do you suggest? And it does. Well,
it can give you your whole itinerary over a number of days. It's very, very.
In a way, I'd probably think that maybe takes out the adventure of it, but it does increase the safety. If you've got concerns, or you're worried about, or you're thinking, what am I going to do, or you're stuck for ideas, you do have the phone there, and to look up, and you have access to such an incredible resource that you didn't have when I was travelling years ago as a youngster.
Yes. I mean, I can't actually remember how we booked holidays in because we didn't have... It
was a travel agent, wasn't it? Or the book. You had a book. What was the book?
Did we always go to a travel agent, or did we just wander... And how did you book? So airfare...
Holiday brochures, wasn't it?
Holiday brochures, yes. And then you filled out a form, or you phoned up.
I think you phoned up, didn't you?
And if you just wanted to fly somewhere... Again, you probably went through a travel agent.
Yeah, the travel agent was like, and it's probably is quite sad that we've probably lost a lot of travel agents, but they are still out there. They've had to adapt, and I don't think you can beat actually being able to talk to somebody, but you don't need to, and that's the reality of it. Coming back to the point where we're talking about active holidays as opposed to passive holidays, what we tend to like to do is perhaps combine both, because when you do get to a certain age, it's all right going, I'm going to trek here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, but it's knackering, it's tiring, it's exhausting. And so what we've learned over the last few years in particular is we have to build in time to rest.
Or nap time.
Rest and recuperate. But it's important. And that would be a top tip.
During and after.
Yeah.
Yeah, during and after.
Yeah, but some people don't have any choice after. They just got to go straight back to work.
Yes.
You have obligations when you get home. You have obligations before you leave. But actually, it is building in. I think it builds in time while you're there, because sometimes less is more, because you can do so much, because we have access to all this information. Like I said, do this, do that, do this, do that. And my top tip would be to be selective and spend more time in less places. And just soak up the culture.
Yeah.
Like, for example, we went to Bali. That's probably our most recent adventure. And we wanted to make sure we saw a lot of the island. Now, this is where social media can play a negative part. It's great that you can access people's experiences and tips and whatever, but you have to remember that there's a reality to everywhere you go. You know, the reality of being in Bali is there's traffic. The reality of being in Bali is there's a lot of construction, victim of its own success, because everybody wants to go there. The stats of, the tourists have more than doubled due to, in the last 10 years, I think there's expected 7 million outside. It's insane this year, but you can still find the culture. Because if you don't go to those particular places that you might want to tick off for Instagram.
Because it is a big island. It is a big island, and the places where all the crowds are. They're very, very limited places. You can name them on one hand. And so there are plenty of other places in the island that you can go to which are less busy. You just got to find out about them and make a deliberate effort to go to those quieter places.
And
unless you want Party Central.
Well, no, I mean, like I say, we did a combination, which we try and do, of everything, really, didn't we? And we absolutely loved it. But again, we have to remember that you're in Indonesia with a Hindu culture, and that there are mozzie bites, there's potential for barley belly, that all these things that can stop you from booking things. You have to just learn to accept. We chose to go in off-season, didn't we, when it would be less traffic, but it was, we absolutely got drenched on occasions, didn't we, because it was rainy season. But we just built that in and accepted it. Okay, maybe at the time it was like, oh God, please rain, go away. But we accepted it as part of that trade-off. And I think some people are put off by those uncertainties, whereas I see it as a challenge, even though I might eye roll or I might moan at the time or whatever. But when you overcome those challenges and you survive it, it's growth, isn't it? It's confidence building. It's mindset reset.
Because you're absolutely right, and you do hear people saying, "Well, I'm not really a traveller. I'm not made for travelling." And that statement in itself it's either born out of some bad experiences they've had. But mainly it's because they've read or they've heard things that have put them off. So it's back to the inherited. It's an inherited way of thinking, not necessarily experienced. We of course would advocate and absolutely support. People say, well, okay, you might say I'm not a traveller, but have a go. Just try something different.
It is a psychological shift for some people, though, isn't it? Got to be brave. And my early experiences of travelling to California were because my family were there. So a top tip for me to give out would be, if you are frightened or are nervous of taking that step to travel, seek out people who you may know in a particular part of the world, or even in a different part of the UK. Seek out contacts and connections, seek out groups, or seek out reasons to go, whether it be an activity, painting, kayaking, climbing, yoga. In that way, you're not doing it alone. And you're dipping your toe, and you'll start small. Once you get over that, I remember when Hannah and I were, travelled on our own, which I've talked about on other podcasts. Her memories, I know, are of, she will always say, remember when we got lost in the Lake District and it was pitch black? Do you remember when we got lost on the subway? We went the wrong way on the New York subway, thinking we were going uptown, we were going downtown, or whatever way. Remember when we got lost in Paris? And Mummy, you didn't know where you were going and I had to work it out. You shouldn't say Mummy now, but that's what she used to say to me. And they're the memories.
It's funny.
When things go wrong.
That's right. And it's odd that we remember those things, because even though they've gone wrong, they stand out. And they're sort of, with hindsight, they're quite exciting. They're quite exciting at the time as well. Normally, they're nerve-wracking and a bit of a pain at the time. But then you talk back. We had a trip to Scotland, didn't we?
That's right,
a couple of years ago.
In the middle of winter. Last minute, we were supposed to go to France. And since Brexit, those dog passports or something, ridiculous price. And again, it's all about choice, isn't it? And I'm like, I'm not paying that. So we turned around and went the other way last minute.
But we went to Scotland, and we just, last minute, we booked a bed and breakfast somewhere, and we turned up at the place. I can't remember, 5 p.m. at night, and the last people who'd stayed in it, who had checked out that morning, it wasn't ready basically. And this was at 5 p.m. We couldn't get in touch with the company, and we ended up staying. We just said, right, let's go and stay in a hotel. We just drove to the nearest town, found another hotel.
Lockerbie it was.
That wasn't too far away, was it? No. And stayed there, and that was just totally unexpected. We stayed in another hotel,
and we had haggis.
Yeah, that's right. The dogs just stayed in our hotel room.
The dogs were allowed in. No, it was great. And that was that. Again, we loved that. But again, it was lashing down. Do you remember? That was the other thing. We're like, the room's not ready. It's pouring with rain. What are we doing? And then what we did was we got in the car and we just drove and just kept discovering the coastline. And the next day it was beautiful. And we went, the sun came out, and we have the most beautiful photographs of these sunset beaches and these beaches all to ourselves with the dogs, and it was just gorgeous. And that came from not planning, from it pouring with rain. It was just taking off and just seeing what was there.
What month
and
of
it
the
was
year was that?
January. It was literally January. Yes.
Yeah, there you
so
go. Scotland.
Being unplanned is a good thing.
Trip to Scotland in January.
Yeah, don't blame me if it's freezing if you go. But it turns out well in the end. And we've got loads of stories like that, haven't we? And I think that's the beauty of travelling as opposed to going on holiday. You know, you do have to try new things, and it is character building. And it's I'm not saying we walk around permanently with a smile on our face because we're being challenged. Believe me, I get hacked off. and we will bicker. And we'll debate, and we'll talk about, we should have done this, we should have done that, maybe go here, maybe go there, you said this is rubbish. But actually, it tends to all turn out well in the end, doesn't it? Does.
But something like what happens if something goes wrong is, I think, another reason why people are nervous of travelling.
Yes.
Or travelling too far away. There are a lot of people, let's say Brits, who will think going away into Europe is safer than perhaps going into deepest, darkest Africa or going across the other side of the world, and it makes people nervous because it's the voyage of the unexpected or the unknown.
But I think what we're trying to say is it doesn't really matter where you go as long as you go somewhere you want to go.
Yes.
But just what we're saying is introduce a sense of adventure and uncertainty to where you go. You know, and I just think that that's character building. And then when you've done a bit of that, I think you then want to do more. That's what I'm advocating.
Yes.
Some people it just doesn't interest them to go to Asia, doesn't interest them to go to Australia, doesn't interest them to go to Africa. I mean, Africa was never on my bucket, well, it was on my list, but it wasn't. I used to think, I just never thought I would ever get to go for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I went to Egypt, but that's like talk about the continent. I'm not talking about Kenya and South Africa, which is where I've been since I've met you. But naturally, we've gone to Kenya. But the last time we've just been for your birthday, we made a conscious decision to not go and just stay with family. It's a beautiful thing to do, but I wanted to see more of Kenya and experience more of the culture of Kenya. I have to say, I loved it.
Well, it was your idea for me to go out there as part of my birthday celebration, so thank you for that. And part of that being in that different part of Kenya compared to where I grew up was great. Well, you hadn't seen that part of Kenya, and it was also where I went to primary school. And we visited the school, and that was I hadn't been back there for however many years, since I was 13. And that was a real adventure.
It was. I think we're going to do a podcast on that. We were going to do maybe 6 months of 60 or something. I don't know, I've just thought of that on the top of my head. And you going back to your school, so look out for that one. But on that trip, as part of it, you met with your former teacher, and she is the mum of one of your best friends, and she's an incredible woman called Mary Coulson, and she set up or founded a charity. So one of the highlights for me from that trip was going to see Restart Africa, and it is a place for essentially, would you say, abandoned local children?
Yes.
Abandoned local children. And she takes in, I don't know whether it's around probably maybe 100 children at a time. And we had the joy of actually going to on site and being shown around, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was just wonderful. And obviously sad stories attached to hope, but it really brought a sense of perspective of when we do go to Kenya and we see a lot, we're very privileged, in a very privileged position when we're there with who we know there. But obviously this just showed a completely different side, which was the side I was excited and wanted to see. And I feel like, I have seen a lot more. And we, the other thing we did is our driver, we spoke a lot to him, didn't we, about his family. He drove us around the different safaris. You have to have that out there. You either do that or you fly, because but it's just to give some context. And we got to know him so well, didn't we, Gideon? And it was just and that's why I enjoyed it. I'm not taking anything away from the other incredible trips that we've done, but just to deep dive a bit more into the culture of the country.
Yeah, and you get to see a part of their way of life and talk to people that you wouldn't otherwise talk to if you only went out there on a package holiday, stayed in a hotel,
yes,
did a game park, and then flew back to Europe.
Yes.
So it was something very, very different.
Yes.
And we've also, I mean, it's something we do try to do when we travel is talk to the locals. I say whether it's a taxi driver, whether it's a waiter in the hotel, whether it's somebody we meet who has their own shop that we're shopping in, and try to learn something about them and their culture and their background, because it all adds to the richness of life.
I'm not singling out Scousers, but we're pretty good at that, I think. I think that's one of the things that we're known for. I think we do that inherent talking.
Yeah, chatting to people.
Chatting to people and being inquisitive and friendly. And I think it's something we do here in our own city. And then it's something I'd like to think that most of us do when we travel. And that we've just got an innate curiosity. The majority of us here are, you know, historically have Irish descent, we're descended from Ireland, Scotland, you know, we are culturally
and melting pot.
And then we've got the Chinese community, the African community, all these different wonderful communities in our city. So we have grown up with it. I mean, I'm not saying we're perfect, but I think we're very accepting and open arms with different cultures. So when I go to different countries, I do like people asking me about me as well. I like it both ways. I mean, people instinctively will say Beatles or, you know, the Grand
Everton.
National or Liverpool or Everton. But yeah, Everton was a subject the last time we were in Kenya. But that's
But just picking up on that and those guys, two examples of both taxi rides. So you could say they're traveling. One was in Abu Dhabi. You'll remember this. A taxi journey in Abu Dhabi, and then there was a taxi journey here in Liverpool from city centre back home. The one in Abu Dhabi, we were talking to the driver who was a Pakistani who lived and worked in Abu Dhabi about cricket, because there was a massive cricket match on between India and Pakistan at the moment. And of course, the first thing when we jumped in was to find out whether he was Indian or Pakistani. He said Pakistani, and there was a whole conversation about cricket, where he came from and how long he'd been in Abu Dhabi and where they played cricket in Abu Dhabi.
We did get on. It was fascinating, but we did then get onto the politics that was connected to it.
Yes, we did,
and I learned so much.
Yes. And then the second one was here in Liverpool. We jumped in a taxi in town to drop us home, and the taxi driver was from Yemen. Okay. And he'd been in Liverpool. He was great. He had a Yemeni accent, a Yemeni Scouse accent. I challenge anyone to
well,
describe
you
that.
spotted it. You did spot it. You're very good at that.
And he'd been in Liverpool for 10 years, and we started talking about Yemen, because obviously Yemen has been in a civil war situation for many, many years, and it's very dangerous. He had family back there, and again, in that 20-minute drive, we managed to talk to him about what it's like having family back there, what it's like for him, the opportunities he's had since moving to Liverpool.
Yes.
And it was quite poignant, actually.
It was poignant, but he also needed some support, didn't he? A little bit of advice, which I think I now remember we ended up giving him about where he was living.
Yes.
And it wasn't ideal, and the landlord wasn't being very nice. It wasn't, when I say wasn't being very nice, they were patching things up, and there was some damp in his home, and we gave him some advice about that, and we ended up chatting to him outside the house, didn't we? Yeah. And so I do think, coming back to the opportunities that you get from immersing yourself in different cultures, you can do that whether you're at home or whether you're abroad. Naturally, I think it's more instinctive perhaps to do it when you go abroad, but we need to be very aware that we should do it in our own cities and in our own communities as well. Because you never know what you're going to learn, and you never know who you'll meet and the conversations that you have and where they lead, which is our common theme.
The other thing that you and I have talked about is we've tried to understand why we enjoy travelling so much. What is it about travelling? And the more I've read into it, particularly more recently, are all the positive things about traveling. There's been research into how it improves people's mental health. People who travel a lot, and I'm not talking about the stresses of going through an airport, I'm talking about more generally travel a lot. Their instances of stress and anxiety are generally less. It's good for sort of cognitive benefits, the way your mind works, having to process, find a new way around to get from A to B, being presented with unfamiliar surroundings, having to grapple with different language, even if you don't speak it at all. All of those things, in terms of wiring your brain, are good for your brain. There's a whole host of positives that come from getting out and traveling into new environments.
But I think the big thing for me is the creation of the stories, the making of the memories. Obviously, whether you go alone and you meet new friends, or you meet new friends as a couple, or you meet new friends as a group, or whether you go with your children and have new experiences. But I just think it's the stories that it gives you to tell, and the memories. I mean, everyone knows I love to take photographs, and I'm very guilty of taking too many sometimes rather than being in the moment. But I'm trying to I've got this difficulty of balancing being in the moment and capturing the moment, because I just love new experiences so much that I try and capture them, and I probably underestimate the memories that I will have regardless of whether I have a photograph of it or not.
And listen, I don't think there's ever been any journey or destination or holiday that we've been on where we've then looked back on it and said, oh, I remember that. That was the holiday when you took too many photos.
That's true.
Yeah, those photos are there, and they give us immense pleasure.
They do,
and also rekindle. It's the way you keep memories alive.
Yeah.
So we're forever looking back at photos of where past travels and so on.
And you do forget.
So don't worry about taking too many photos.
I think you do forget. No, well, I do worry about taking too many, but and I do post a few of the many that I take. I try to, but just for my own memory and to look back on and smile, but B, perhaps to inspire and just to show people, because I'm guilty. I look at where everybody else goes. I get ideas from that. That sends me down rabbit holes. That's the type of content I love. And so I want to share my experiences too. And we're always open to being asked about our experiences and where we've been, what it was like, what we'd do again, what we wouldn't do again. Yeah, social media has its downsides, but, if you don't look with envy at people's experiences, I think you need to be conscious of your feelings. If it makes you feel down when you look at people's experiences, either unfollow or scroll past. But if it does inspire you, or you think I'd love to do that, maybe just have put a pin in it and think about how you can make it happen for yourself.
And I think that is a positive, and it links back to something we were talking about earlier, is that because you can see what other people are experiencing and have experienced in all over the world, there in the palm of your hand on social media, you can say, oh, I'd love to do that.
Yes.
But if you go back to the 1970s or the 1980s, if you'd walked into a travel agent and said, you wouldn't say, I'd like to go whitewater rafting in Patagonia. Because they'd look at you and say, what? No, here's the brochure. This is what you can do.
Yeah.
But now it's literally open.
It's literally the world is your oyster.
And it's the ideas. The ideas are there in social media. You've still got to go ahead and commit and do it and plan it and go.
Yeah.
But the ideas are all there, far more than it was in the past.
I think another tip I would give as well on that is to just book it. Book it and then plan. Yeah, do your research, but you can go down like a million routes and rabbit holes of all the options. And I think with us just going back to our recent trip to Bali, we knew we just had to get it booked. And then it was the research, because then you go, oh God, I've booked it now.
Yeah.
Oh, and that in itself is like a big dopamine hit of excitement and nervousness, especially if you actually haven't planned where you're going and what you're doing. That would be a tip, is there's a saying, start before you're ready. And I think you should apply that to travelling.
Yes.
Just get it booked and then work it out. Don't overthink it, because that's when you hesitate.
And I remember reading
maybe don't end up going.
Yeah, somebody, I read somewhere, choose a place or choose a destination, choose a date.
Yeah.
And then everything else is just a logistical issue. just a logistical issue. But if you've chosen the destination, the date, you're saying, and book it.
Yes.
And then deal with all the detail later.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
and then you're committed.
And time goes so quickly. Again, one of our trips that we booked way in advance was we had a family trip to Kenya, to the Masai Mara, and it was booked and it was planned in 2019 for 2022. And I remember, I think I might have told the story before, but I was like, that's ages away. Little did we know there was going to be a pandemic in between. Yeah. But there were 16 of us on that trip, and we had all kinds of things go wrong beforehand. But once we got there, everything was absolutely wonderful. And time went so quickly, and now it's 4 years since we've been, and it goes like that, and we're not getting any younger. And I think coming back to the midlife point is I do feel like I'm in a hurry to see places. I do, and I need to stay fit, well and healthy. I'm inspired to stay fit, well and healthy, yes, for our future generations of whatever, or having good times with our children and being well at home. But actually for me, it's about being able to travel for as long as possible.
Well, you'll be pleased to know, of course, that part of travelling is it enhances social connection, and social connection is one of the strongest predictors of longevity. So
true.
We're in a virtuous circle. The more we travel, the more we'll be meeting people and socialising and helping. But
some people travel and don't speak to people, though.
Well, it's the social connection which is the important thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about diving into culture and being curious, but I do want to come on to the point about staying fit, because you have everyone knows, regardless of whatever destination, if you go through an airport, you have to be fit and well, because it's stressful and it's long and it's hard work and it's pulling suitcases and luggage, and it's cognitively working out the gates and where everything is. And I do often leave that to you guys, because I just go, I've planned the rest of it, I'm just going to follow you as to which gate and whatever else. But I do think physically it's really important to stay fit and well if you want to travel.
And again, hopefully that's a bit of a virtuous circle as well, because the physical fitness will be enhanced on your travels as well.
Oh, absolutely.
If you have an active holiday where you're an active trip and you're exercising, you're eating healthily.
Well, I think you have to eat healthy when you're on holiday.
Yeah.
Again, it's the type of holiday that you go on. If you're going to be active and you want to get up early, watch the sunsets, be spontaneous. Okay, I'm not saying don't have fun and don't, everybody tends to overindulge when they go away, but you do have to think about it. And certainly when we went to Bali, I didn't want to overindulge.
No.
I definitely didn't, because it was so hot and we had so much to do and so much to see and a lot of driving and whatever, I just felt it was important to check myself on that, because again, when you're older, when you're our age, you don't recover as quickly. You get tired in the afternoons. It's tiring. Yeah. And I am someone who wants to get up and see the sunrise, not every day, but I definitely want to fit in some sunrises, because I just think it's the most beautiful time of the day. And we often, no two sunsets are the same. And that's our go-to. We will maybe have a glass of wine or something at a sunset, but certainly for sunrise, you've got to be up and at it. And we've chased many a sunrise, haven't we? But I don't think we'd have done that if we'd have overindulged the night before.
And it's another thing with social media or the internet, let's say, but also talking to locals. So I can think of two sunrises. I mean, we've seen lots of sunrises, but I can think of two in particular. One in San Diego, where we went to, and I'm going to get the pronunciation wrong, Mount Soledad. And
I can't remember the name of it.
That was something where we went online and we said, where's the best place to see a sunrise in San Diego? And that's where we were sent, and it was absolutely beautiful.
It was.
Absolutely fantastic. And I remember that so well. And it was a beautiful sunrise, and then we went and had a lovely
big breakfast. That's what we did overindulge. It was a reward.
So there was that one where we looked it up. But I also remember it was in the Lake District where we asked...
And it was freezing cold.
Yeah, we asked where... We were down at a lake, beside a lake, so we knew we had to get up on a mountain somewhere if we were going to have some chance of seeing a sunrise. And we were directed up this very, very narrow lane, and it was icy, but we got there. We got there in the end.
I was like, with the dogs.
Yeah, as the sun
and
was coming up.
And again, gorgeous photos. Yeah. And I mean, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to apologise for taking them, because what a lovely memory and what beautiful photographs. I tend to love my photos of dogs and sunsets. It's my favourite topic, I think. Yeah. But it was gorgeous. But I come back to the point that you can't overindulge, certainly as you get older. That midlife travel, if you want to make the most of it, you do have to be conscious in your thinking of what you're taking in and how well you're keeping yourself. I just think it really enhances your experience.
Yeah. I think I was reading somewhere, I've forgotten the exact statistic, but it was talking about how the Gen X generation now values experiences far more than actually personal, physical possessions.
Yeah, they say collect moments, not things.
That's right.
It's a saying,
and that's a noticeable difference in terms of research and studies into the Gen X generation.
I do think COVID had it. I mean, we've talked about COVID to death, but I do think that time when we couldn't travel, certainly our generation who had probably travelled, and we were just desperate, weren't we? We were absolutely climbing the walls to get back on a plane well, that's how I felt. But then a lot of people then rediscovered this country, didn't they? Yes. Which is no bad thing either, which is, again, we're conscious of. We think, gosh, we're always getting on a plane and going somewhere, but we're not as good as at seeing own parts of our own country. I think we're consciously now trying to go and meet friends and relatives who live in this country and spend time in different parts of the country. And we went to Wales for your birthday, for example.
Well, let's do another pitch, because we've done a pitch for Liverpool. We have the Lake District to the north.
We do.
We've got
We're very lucky.
The mountains of North Wales to the south of us. And to the east of us, we've got the Peak District.
Yeah. All within, I would say, 2 hours.
All within 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're all outstanding areas of outstanding natural beauty.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk about the weather, but you can not go to the Lake District and expect good weather. It's always raining generally in the Lake District. But sunny weather, there's nothing that can really beat a UK holiday, let's say a weekend break in the UK.
But no, I don't agree. I think if you're going to do those trips, I think you should do them in the winter or the autumn.
Ooh.
And the reason, because there's less crowds.
Yeah.
And you can't beat a log fire, can you? Yeah. And a walk and a pub. That's what.
Yes.
We did that for your birthday, didn't we?
And it was sunny. I didn't say anything about being warm.
No,
so
I know.
The sun, getting the sun. Hopefully,
bloody freezing, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, we can't avoid the rain.
No, and that's why I think go in the winter, and then you won't be disappointed. You can't beat a log fire and a walk and a pub, I don't think. And, you have a choice. Then you can either, go out and get soaked or get cold or whatever, or you can stay in. And both experiences are equally as enjoyable.
We were, just as a bit of an aside, we were at a small town in North Wales, and it was a beautiful, beautiful town in the middle of February. And I said I was talking to a local person, and I said, this is a beautiful town. And he said, you come here in the summer and it's totally different. It's absolute chaos. It's
there you go. You
rammed full.
Yeah.
But we could appreciate it in its natural state in February.
But again, we've just come back from Rome. So it was like we're name dropping. But one thing, we were really tired on that trip because we'd been in London that weekend, and it's coming back to being fit and well. And we were fit and well to do it. But what I wish we'd done more of in Rome, and I loved it, was get up earlier because it was crowded. Absolutely loved it. Beautiful, stunning. But the one thing we then did the whole hop on, hop off purchase of the bus ticket. And we went one stop, found this beautiful hotel that had been recommended to us by Tom, and then
with the rooftop
rooftop bar.
That was the crucial point.
It's me saying don't overindulge, but we actually do indulge in beautiful settings. There you go. There's a caveat to my don't overindulge. When we found this beautiful setting, and obviously the prices weren't cheap, but we were like, you know what? This is a once in a lifetime perhaps, where we sit on a rooftop overlooking Rome with a nice glass of wine.
We didn't
overindulge. It's just that it wasn't cheap.
Yeah.
But so we just made it last for longer. And again, we had a lovely afternoon of actually just talking to each other. And that's the one thing, again, on perhaps a fresh topic, we keep talking about talking to new people, and we're not ones for making new friends. We love talking and learning about the cultures. We love talking to people, but we do like to move on as well.
Yes,
I would say. But the one thing for us in our relationship, and if you are in a relationship and go as a couple, or even in a friendship group, take the time. I just think when you're away, you just have better quality conversation.
Yeah.
If you make space for it in a completely new setting, I just think it gives you a fresh perspective on certain topics that may have been bubbling or needing to talk about. You're not distracted with real life.
I was totally agree, and I was also going to say, in that same hotel in Rome, on our way from the ground floor to the rooftop bar, we had a 30-second conversation with an American who had been back to the hotel every year for 43 years, staying in the same room. Now, didn't he say he came 3 times a year?
3 times a year.
For 43 years.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure, I couldn't do that.
No, but again...
But fair play to him. If that's what you want to do, then fair play. Yeah. But he wanted the familiarity. Yes. And I think that is slightly defeating the object. I don't know his personal circumstances. We're not here to judge if that's what you want to do. No. But I just think it takes it away from the fresh thinking and the fresh perspective.
He got out on a floor before we continued in the lift, and he got out. But there must have been more to his story.
Oh, yeah.
We had literally 25 seconds to get that information out of it. And then he got out of the lift.
Yeah, but we remember it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. You're thinking, wow, there must be something there. You know, why has he come back 3 times a year for 43 years?
But people do that. People tend to go to the same place. And again, we're not here to judge if that's what you want to do. And if that's all you can get, sometimes... we have a little place in Spain, and it is familiarity can be nice because we know where we're going when we get there. But what we do is every time we go is we try and find a new experience, don't we? Whether it be simply a new restaurant, or we get out into the mountains, or we go away for one night somewhere in the area around Manilva, Marbella, Estepona, Malaga. You know, we try and do something new every time we go because we know that that's what we love to do.
Yes.
We want a fresh story every time we go. But the familiarity of getting to a place that we know is quite nice in terms of immediately feeling relaxed. So I do get it. I do get the whole going back to the same place or going to a hotel where everything's done for you. If you have a really chaotic life and you just need to stop. Because being adventurous can be really hard work. Yeah. And while we're saying about all the benefits of it, which there's undoubtedly are many, which we've spoke about, it can be exhausting too. And so if you need to go and lie by a pool, or if you need to go and just curl up in a hotel and read a book for a week, then do it, whatever works for you.
That means you need a holiday. You don't need an adventure. You need a holiday to rest and recharge.
Yeah. But most people, I do think, see the booking of a holiday as that. Yes. And what we're sort of looking to advocate is, if that's what you need, then do it. But perhaps try and build in something new each time. And when the more often you do it, the more likely you'll then do it again and again, and become slightly more adventurous each time. And the benefits are many. I do want to make the point on this sort of potential burnout issue, you know, the need for a break and the need for a change of scene and the benefits that brings. I think we've all been there where we've been desperate for a holiday and it's done us the world of good. But in terms of this midlife boom and yearning for travel in our midlife, I think part of that is down to us having to suddenly think about ourselves, which isn't easy. Again, we've covered in previous podcasts the midlife squeeze, when you've got, you know, children perhaps still living at home, obligations of parents, or, you know, and career and other financial pressures. But I do think if you can find time to prioritize yourself and think about what you want, and I hate to say it before it's too late, because time passes so quickly. Seriously, after this podcast, get a map out and just go, where have I always wanted to go? And just put a pin in it or write it down, and just don't dismiss it. Don't dismiss it. Work out a budget, work out a plan, and just take those steps towards making it happen, because you will always have obligations at home. There will always be a reason not to do things. But if you do it, I promise you won't regret it. And even if things go wrong, even if you've got a bit of anxiety about if, but, when, how am I going to do it, all these things, if you overcome it and you do it, it'll be the best story you'll ever tell. And do it for yourself. Never mind for everybody else, because when your mindset is in the right place and you've overcome things, as I always say, the ripple effect onto those who you know and love around you is so positive.
Yeah.
So it's not totally selfish. It will have a benefit on everybody you know and love.
Get a map out, or get your bucket list you might have written out.
Yeah.
Choose a place and choose a time and go for it.
Yeah. And you know what? One of my favourite lines is, what's the worst that can happen? Perhaps mozzie bites, as we said, barley belly, getting lost. There's nothing that you can't overcome. There's nothing that you can't overcome. We actually didn't get barley belly, did we? We did. Oh, actually,
again,
you got sick in Singapore.
In Singapore, but it wasn't in Bali.
Singapore belly.
For 24 hours.
Oh, you were miserable though.
Yeah.
But you were miserable, but we got over it. We just went, well, we can't do what we were planning to do today.
Yeah.
Well, we got up early the next day and did it, didn't we?
But that reminds me of a little tip that we can say in closing, is ignore all the stereotypes. So again, when you're thinking about, should I visit this place or this country or this city, ignore the stereotypes. I mean, even when we went to Rome, I had in my mind, again, stereotypes. It's my fault. I was reading or listening to too much, and maybe some of this is very, very old, but this idea that Rome is dirty or that there's a lot of crime and there are bag snatchers, we didn't experience any of that.
No, we didn't.
Nothing
at
all.
Gorgeous.
It was a gorgeous city.
Yeah.
And the people were fantastic. So ignore the stereotypes.
Yeah, you've got to go. You have got to be careful. You have got to be prepared. But I do think go with a positive, open mind. I mean, God, we live in Liverpool. How many stereotypes have we faced over the years? Just certainly if you're listening from the city, just think, what do people think of us? And it's just not true. What do people think of the city? And it's just not true. Apply that thinking to every other city in the world and give it a go.
And if you've been listening to us and it sort of struck a little spark in your mind and you're now thinking of going somewhere, or you might have something planned, let us know. Or if you know somebody, some of you know a friend who's been umming and ahhing about going away, who hasn't got around to booking anything, forward them this podcast and get them to listen, and hopefully it'll be a little
on the let us know
word of encouragement.
On the let us know, it'll be our website's a bit all over the place, isn't it?
Yeah, Instagram.
So you have to be on Instagram or Facebook or Michelle at talkontoWalkon.com. Get travelling, make memories, don't collect things. If what we share in our podcasts makes you think that you might want to make a change in your life or in your business, then let's talk. Together, Patrick and I, we make a unique team. We combine our coaching skills with decades of lived experiences. We know what it's like to feel stuck, and we've done the work to come out the other side. And we want to use the lessons that we've learned to help you live the life that you want as well.
And if you want to know more about our coaching offer, then go to our website, talkontoWalkon.com. But as we advocate, you can't beat a conversation. Drop us a message on Facebook or on our Instagram at talkontoWalkon, and we'd love to hear from you. And we know our stories and our life lessons are making an impact, and with your help we can reach more people and make an even bigger difference.
So please subscribe to the YouTube channel, share our podcast, or pass our content on to someone who you think might need it or even just enjoy it. So let's connect, let's talk, and let's see where it leads.